A very good afternoon to all of you. At the outset, let me remember with gratitude the organizers of this meet for giving me this great opportunity to address this great gathering of principals from ICSE schools from all over India. So the topic which we are going to discuss is supposed to be one of the most important topics in the post-pandemic era. We don't say that COVID-19 has disappeared, it is very much there. I take rounds in COVID ward every day, today morning also. But it has ceased to become a pandemic, it has become an infectious disease like any other condition that matter. So health and hygiene in schools today. Why this becomes important is because in December 2020, after the first wave of the pandemic had receded to a great extent, I started getting a large number of students from schools as well as colleges, adolescents basically, between 10 to 19 years. They were all excellent in studies with great academic track record before the onset of the online mode of education. But once the online education started with the onset of the pandemic, many of them had sudden academic backwardness. They used to complain of drowsiness during daytime, inability to sleep at night, incapability of concentrating in online classes, inability to recall what was learned in the previous days, and so many of them had aches and pains in different parts of the body. The pattern of the symptoms were very similar. We conducted an in-depth evaluation of 600 students between 10 to 19 years of age and identified that 86% of these children had very low levels of vitamin D. The levels of vitamin D in their blood were single digit, while actually it is supposed to be between 30 to 70 to be considered as normal. Vitamin D, as we all know, is very important from different points of view. It's good for the functioning of the bones as well as your teeth. It's necessary for your physical energy levels. It's very important for the information processing in the brain, and recently we have identified that it improves immunity also, because as we all know, if the level of vitamin D is above 60 in blood, these vitamin D molecules will go and bind to the angiotensin converting enzyme receptors or ACE receptors in the lung. What is the importance of this receptor? It's exactly the same receptor to which the COVID-19 virus binds when it enters into the body. So the COVID virus enters into the body, binds to the ACE receptors, enters into the lung, creates pneumonia and other complications. But if the level of vitamin D is above 60, the vitamin D molecules would already bind the ACE receptors, and even if the COVID-19 virus enters into the body, it does not have a gateway into the lungs. So it may produce some peripheral symptoms like some running nose or throat irritation, and within a couple of days it will go its way. So that is the importance of vitamin D. So just an incidental finding regarding how the pandemic has affected our children. Next slide please. Okay, as we all know, health is a combination of different elements. Physical, mental, social and spiritual elements are there. So let's try to understand how we have to take care of the health of our students, as well as our own health, as well as the health of our teachers in the coming days. So physical health and hygiene is the first and foremost thing I want to emphasize. I've already discussed about the necessity of vitamin D. What can we do to get enough vitamin D? Only simple thing we need to do is encourage our children to do physical activity with exposure to sunlight for at least 1 hour per day. And what is the ideal time? You need not say that there is an ideal time for exposing yourself to sunlight. In places like UK, where sunlight availability is very limited, they say that between 12 noon and 2 p.m. you have to expose yourself to sunlight. What happens is that I was disclosing about vitamin D to a group of elite corporate delegates a few months back. And one of those persons who heard the relevance of vitamin D from me just Googled and found out that to get enough vitamin D, you have to expose yourself to sunlight between 12 and 2. Unfortunately, it was the scenario in Western countries. And what he did was that climbed on top of the 16th story of his apartment exposed himself to a little bit of sunlight at 2 p.m. in noon in the mid of May and fell down unconscious with heat stroke. Never try such things. Exposure to sunlight between 7 to 9 in the morning or 4 to 6 in the evening is more than enough. Our children ask us, is it okay to exercise in a gymnasium? Of course, exercise has got 4 definite benefits in the human body. Number 1, it increases the level of a neurotransmitter called dopamine in the prefrontal cortex of the brain, the part of the brain which is located just behind your forehead. And when the level of dopamine is increased, your concentration improves. So kids who engage in regular exercise at least 1 hour per day will have better concentration. Number 1. Number 2, regular exercise can lead to increase in the level of something called endorphins in the brain. These are a group of chemicals which will give you a sense of well-being, happiness, a sense of purpose in life. We see a lot of adolescent children, especially higher secondary kids, feeling that there is no purpose in living, no happiness, no enjoyment, feel like killing myself. We shall come to the other elements of that. So the second advantage of exercise is increase in endorphins, giving them happiness. Third one, as we all know, increase in blood flow to the brain, leading to an increase in energy level. And the fourth advantage is, if you exercise with exposure to sunlight, you'll get enough vitamin D. So what is the disadvantage of exercising in an air-conditioned gymnasium? You get the first 3 benefits, but the fourth one, vitamin D, is conspicuous by its absence if you get into such a habit. And what is exercise? I'll speak about what is ideal exercise for people like you. Can communicate this message to your colleagues, your teachers. It is said that to prevent lifestyle-induced disorders, you need to do moderate exercise for 150 minutes per week, spread over 5 days. Which means 30 minutes of moderate exercise over 5 days. Just like in any other case, the weekend you can take rest. Saturday and Sunday, you can bunk exercises. And what is this moderate exercise? We see a lot of elderly people with lifestyle-induced diseases going for a stroll in the evening, very leisurely walking around and coming back and saying that I've done exercise. Does it amount to moderate exercise? I'll just give you a formula to calculate moderate exercise. You see, the maximum heart rate means the maximum number of times your heart can beat in a minute in a healthy way. Maximum heart rate is 220 minus your age. So if you're 40 years old, 220 minus 40 will be 180 beats per minute will be your maximum heart rate. Any activity in which your heart rate is at least 60% of your maximum heart rate is called moderate exercise. So for a person 40 years of age, 220 minus 40, 180 is the maximum heart rate. 60% of 180 will be 108 per minute. So any activity in which your heart rate is 108 per minute at least for 30 minutes every day for 5 days a week. That is moderate exercise. So how do you translate it into practical reality? Can you have an Apple Watch and start walking to ensure that the heart rate is maintained to this level? Difficult practically. So maybe brisk walking, jogging, sprinting, cycling, swimming, any of these things which provide sustained physical movement is enough. And what happens is many of our kids do exercise. One of the famous sport events in which they participate is cricket. Unfortunately, cricket is a game in which 90% of the people are simply wasting their time standing still, and maybe only 10% are running, right? Football or hockey may be a better exercise. Any exercise in which your body weight is borne by the knee joints is a better exercise, because if your body weight is supported by the knee joints in any form of activity, that will help to mobilize calcium to your bones. And the amount of calcium in your bones is inversely proportional to the amount of calcium in your coronary arteries. I'm not trying to frighten you by telling so many medical terminologies. Coronary arteries are blood vessels which supply the heart. And you know, if too much of calcium is deposited inside the coronary arteries, it can block the blood flow to the heart and lead to heart attack. So if you do any activity in which your body weight is supported by the knee joint, like walking, sprinting, jogging, anything like that, that will be a better way of exercise. In swimming and cycling, the body weight is not essentially borne by the knee joint. So, swimming and cycling can have all the other advantages other than calcium mobilization. So if you walk or sprint or jog, the additional advantage is calcium will be mobilized in your bones, and more calcium in bones means lesser calcium in coronary arteries, which means your heart will be better. Hope you are able to follow what I am trying to convey to you. And what should be the diet? You see, we had conducted a survey among higher secondary school girls in 2019 in Trivandrum. We surveyed around 5,000 girls between 16 to 18 years of age, belonging to the 11th and 12th standard. And we identified that 557 of them had polycystic ovarian syndrome, or PCOS. PCOS is a very common finding among adolescent girls. It's a condition in which, in the periphery of the ovaries, small cysts will be there. And if you take the ultrasound scan of the stomach, abdomen, it will appear like a necklace. The appearance is called necklace appearance. Very beautiful to see, but not very healthy to endure. So, if a person has PCOS, 3 symptoms. Number 1, they would have obesity, especially truncal obesity. They would develop a pot belly. And remember, pot belly is not just a cosmetic issue. Pot belly during adolescence means that they are likely to develop type 2 diabetes mellitus in a decade unless they work on it. Got it? So a lot of youngsters between 20 to 30 are having type 2 diabetes. That used to happen only about 40 years, maybe a generation earlier. So number 1 is this pot belly. Number 2 is the menstrual periods will be delayed. Instead of getting it once in 28 days, they will be having it once in 35 days, 40 days, 50 days, like that. Third is they will be developing hair growth just like in male body. That is what is called hirsutism. So any child, any girl with these 3 things, a pot belly, delayed menstrual periods, and hair growth just in males, needs to be investigated for PCOS. Why? If PCOS is not properly treated, risk number 1, they can develop diabetes. Risk number 2, they can develop infertility in future. That is very much increasing these days. And the treatment of this PCOS is very simple. Reduce your weight by 5 kilograms and 90% of PCOS disappears completely. No need to take any medicines. And what is the ideal diet? That is very important. Ideal diet, you can tell to your children is, we have a very practical method called food plate method. There are hundreds of fancy diets, GM diet, keto diet, various kinds of diets. But what I am trying to tell to my children in schools is, this food plate method means divide your meal into 4. 1/4 of that should be carbohydrates. Rice or chapati or whatever it is, make it only 1/4 of your total food intake. 1/4 should be proteins. If you are a vegetarian, any kind of protein which any kind of vegetarian diet which provides proteins like peas or whatever it is. 1/4 of the diet should be green leafy vegetables. And the next 1/4 should be fruits, especially fruits with fiber content. So only 1/4 carbohydrates, 1/4 should be proteins. If you are a non-vegetarian, fish or chicken, especially in a curry form, not fried as much as possible. 1/4 has to be green leafy vegetables, and the next 1/4 should be fruits with fiber content. That will make a healthy diet. Ask your children to start your day by drinking 700 ml of water immediately when you wake up in the morning. That will cleanse your body to a large extent. Again, just like diet, we have got this environmental hygiene, waste disposal. As we know, the pandemic which we had experienced recently is supposed to be the result of something called a man-animal conflict. Human beings invaded into the territory of animals, and that stressed them out. And if the body of a person is stressed, the infectious organisms which get into the body can multiply manyfold, and it will produce symptoms. That is what is called psychoneuroimmunology. If you are stressed, Any illness can worsen. If you are stressed, your diabetes can worsen. If you are stressed, your hypertension can worsen. If you are stressed, your immunity will go down, and even a simple fever can become complicated. That is very important. So how to keep your environment clean? Among the 4 different types of intelligence we have to talk to our students. Number 1 is academic intelligence or practical intelligence, the kind of intelligence they need to get marks in exam. Second, we have got emotional intelligence, the ability to regulate and modulate one's emotions and to apply appropriate emotions in appropriate quantities at the appropriate situation. That's emotional intelligence for you. Third, we have got social intelligence. Human being is a social animal. They should understand the position and role as a member of the society and take into consideration the larger interests of the society whenever they plan and execute something. And the 4th domain of intelligence is ecological intelligence. The wisdom to keep yourself, your premises and your environment clean, including cleanliness of the school. So some projects aimed at healthy waste disposal can be an activity-based experiential learning for your students. I hope many of you are already doing it. No health without mental health. I'm sure my friend Dr. Avinash should be discussing at length about this in the afternoon session, but some basic things. Mental health is also very important for students. And what is mind? According to modern science, mind is nothing but the higher functioning of the brain. And this higher functioning of the brain is in turn influenced by other internal organs, the environment, the kind of people you interact with. So considering the development of a child, from what age onwards do you remember the events which happened in your life in the form of visuals? A question to you, from what age onwards do you remember your life events as visuals? How many years? Maybe your parents might have told you that you have recited Bhagavad Gita or Bible at 1.5 years of age. It's a lie, it's a white lie, just to praise you. It happens only after 3 years of age. Till 3 years, somebody answered it, hands off to you. Till 3.5 years, the part of the brain which regulates visual memory has not developed. That is why, till 3 years of age, the most important source of memory and emotional solace for a child is body contact with the parents, touch. Children who remain in body contact with parents for maximum amount of time have better memory, better emotional regulation. After 3.5 years onwards, they start developing visual memory. And from then onwards, parental behavior becomes very important. If you use abusive language in front of your kids may just observe you, imitate you, internalize you, sometimes even impersonate you, and that can lead to problems. And one very important crisis in present situations, especially in the post-online education mode, is sleep. How many of your children sleep properly these days? Many of them engage in online games or any other digital media use or abuse till late night or even till the early hours of morning. They don't sleep. Unless you sleep for 6 hours continuously, whatever you learn and read during the daytime doesn't consolidate in your brain. That's exactly the reason why you don't sleep on the day before the exam. You mug up a lot of information, but only half of that is reproduced on the day of the exam because the information has not consolidated. So 6 hours of continuous uninterrupted sleep is mandatory for consolidation of memory. Number 2, whatever happens during daytime, the brain cells are active, a lot of metabolic activities are happening, and waste is generated. This waste disposal also happens at night during sleep. So 6 hours of sleep is necessary for disposing the waste also. So if the kid doesn't sleep for 6 hours, what happens? He'll be yawning throughout the day. He'll be unable to focus because the waste materials are still in the brain cells, and that makes him a very dull boy. Sleep hygiene is a group of simple lifestyle modifications which the children as well as you and your teachers can practice. 4 or 5 very simple things, common sense things. Number 1, go to sleep at a fixed time, wake up at a fixed time. What is the best time? Well, it's different for different persons, but for the average human being, there is a neurotransmitter, a chemical in your brain called melatonin. And melatonin leads your brain to a state of complete rest. Melatonin production starts at night after the onset of darkness, and any form of light, even artificial light, can impair the production of melatonin. Between 11 to 12 at night, the melatonin production peaks, remains at the peak level until around 6 in the morning, and once sunlight has arrived, it sharply drops. If you sleep during the time in which melatonin production is at its peak, you're most likely to get continuous uninterrupted sleep. So 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. in the morning for average human beings. But of course, as you know, there are owls and larks and so many differences between human beings. I'm talking about the average human being. So sleep at the proper time. Number 3, don't change the place of sleep frequently. If you sleep at one room and go to another room next day, your body will have adapting to that, difficulty adapting to that change. So never do that. Number 4 is avoid tea, coffee, cola, and all cerebral stimulants after 4 p.m. Because all these things have got a little amount of caffeine. And caffeine, we know, is a cerebral stimulant. Most of us, during the days in which we are preparing for exams in college, might have consumed a lot of coffee at midnight to keep ourselves awake. So what our kids do right now is, in order to remain awake to play the video games, they drink a lot of coffee and cola, and that is harmful. No tea, coffee, anything after 4 p.m. Exercise for at least 45 minutes, around 5 to 6 hours before the proposed time of sleep. Plan to sleep at 11, between 5 and 6, do some exercise for 45 minutes, preferably with exposure to sunlight. And after that exercise, take bath in cold water. Exposure to the sunlight can lead to dilatation of the blood vessels. And taking bath in cold water can lead to constriction of blood vessels. It's an excellent exercise for the blood vessel integrity. You know, when blood vessels are loaded with clots, you develop heart attack, stroke, whole lot of illness. So this exercise increases the pliability of the blood vessels. It's an excellent thing. And now comes the most difficult thing. Switch off all digital devices at least 1 hour before the proposed time of going to bed. Even we are not doing that, right? So if you plan to sleep at 11 p.m., switch off all visual media by 10 p.m. That is very important. What most of the kids do is, in order to get sleep, they just watch the visual media, mobile or iPad or something. But the light from this digital device will impair the production of melatonin. It delays the onset of the sleep. And no wonder many of our kids are suffering from a disease called delayed sleep wake phase onset disorder. Don't be afraid. Just means the time of sleep is after 12 and the waking time is also somewhere close to noon. That is happening exactly. Now, another term I want to introduce to you is mental health first aid. How many of you are aware of this terminology? To teach first aid to all your students, do you teach mental health first aid? Mental health first aid means, if any of your students have got a mental health issue, 13,000 students committed suicide in India in 2021. India's biggest asset is always human resource. And probably these 13,000 people, if they were alive, they would have made their mark in different parts of the world, different nations of the world. So we lost 13,000 students. It's a very important thing. And WHO has very clearly mentioned depression is the most widely prevalent, easily preventable cause of suicide worldwide. How do you recognize whether a child is depressed, or a family member is depressed, or a colleague is depressed? There are 9 signs for depression. I'll just fast mention. Number 1, a person who is depressed is feeling sad throughout the day, right from morning till evening for at least 2 weeks. Number 2, he is unable to experience pleasure and is not interested in any of the routine activities he used to enjoy in the past. Doesn't feel like reading the newspaper, listening to music, going to work, interacting with people, or even having sex. Number 3 is he is feeling extremely tired despite the fact that he has not exerted his body in recent times. Feeling very tired, feels like sleeping and lying down during the day, but he doesn't get sleep also. 4th one is sleep disturbance. The earliest warning sign of depression is early morning awakening. You wake up at least 2 hours prior to the usual time of waking up. A person who used to wake up at 6 a.m. every day is now waking up at 4 or before 4 hours is unable to complete the sleep. That's an indicator that you're slowly moving into depression. Number 5, appetite disturbance. You don't feel like eating even those food meals which you used to enjoy very much. Impaired concentration is the 6th one. Unable to focus on what you're trying to read or do or think or communicate. A lot of thoughts are coming into your mind just like waves of an ocean. You're unable to single out the thought and focus on it. Slowness of thoughts and activities is the 7th one. If somebody is asking a question to you, take a lot of time to give the answer. Somebody is asking you to do a favor in the form of an action. You take a lot of time to execute it. And in some children, especially adolescent children, we have got a sense of agitation. They are restless. They have a subjective restlessness. They are pacing up and down. And remember, that's a very dangerous sign. The 8th symptom of depression is depressive thoughts. You feel hopeless. There is no point in surviving like this. You feel helpless, you feel that everybody has isolated you, you are lonely, there is nobody to understand your emotions, despite the fact that so many people are willing to help you for any of your problems. You feel inappropriate guilt about normal things you have done during your adolescence, like say, falling in love or developing a crush. You think that all these are absolutely forbidden things and God has punished you for it. And most importantly, you feel worthless. You feel that I'm a burden to my family, I'm a burden to the society, I'm better off from this world. And you know what they will do next. That's the 9th sign. They will kill themselves. Death wishes and suicidal ideas. Out of these 9 symptoms, if a person has 5 for the last 2 weeks, he's suffering from major depressive disorder, which is a medical disorder which requires treatment. There are abnormalities in the neurotransmitters in the brain. Medicines to correct those neurotransmitters may be needed. Psychological help to correct the negative cognitions may be needed. So what can you do? What can a teacher do in such a situation? The answer for that is mental health first aid. If any person in your knowledge is suffering from any mental health problem, what you need to do is mental health first aid. Just 5 simple steps. Number 1, approach the person who is in distress and inquire with him what is wrong. What is troubling you? Just a simple open-ended question. Just show some care and regard to him. Number 2, he will just don't open his mind. These adolescents are very difficult people, especially adolescent males, as we all know. They hate to show their weakness in front of others because they think that if they talk about their distress, they will be demeaned by the others. They want to be toxically masculine very much. Girls are better in that level. But if you convince them about 5 things, they may open up. Number 1, you can convince them that you will listen to them without interrupting. You will not make fun of them. You will not scold them. You will not trivialize the problem. And most importantly, convince them that you will be a great dustbin. What is the quality of a great dustbin? It goes inside but never gets leaked. Confidentiality, privacy of the information. If you convince these 5 things and they are convinced, they will start talking to you. And the second step comes. Listen. Listen patiently without interrupting. Don't jump and start an advice. The biggest problem with teachers, I am also a teacher in a medical college. My students tell me that you listen to your patients, but the moment we tell you something, you start advising by the time the second statement is made. That's an inherent problem with all of us. We think that we know everything. We know so many things which have happened in the life of people. We have handled such children before. Remember, everybody wants to be heard. So listen without interrupting. Third step is give information and reassurance. If the person is troubled because of a misinformation, give the real, correct information. Maybe he is troubled because of something we cannot prevent. His mother is suffering from terminal cancer. And the doctor has told that she may not survive for more than a month. What can we do about it? We cannot just manage it, but still give a message to the child that we are there with you whenever you need us. That kind of a reassurance is very important. Most children, at least 70% of the children, will be pacified with these 3 steps. Approach, listen, and give information and reassurance. Rest 30%, those who have got severe mental health issues, may not get a solution out of it. Then comes the fourth step. Encourage professional help. Link the child to a mental health professional. Ask them to consult that person and get treated for that. And the fifth step is the most important step. Encourage social support. The Harvard Human Development Study started in 1938 in Harvard. It's an important study which analyzes the factors behind longevity of human beings. It has identified 5 factors enhancing longevity. Proper diet, regular exercise, abstaining from alcohol, doing away with tobacco. But the fifth and most important aspect which enhances longevity of a human being is the quality of human relationships you develop during your childhood and adolescence. Kids who have got wonderful relationships with their parents, they are better taken care of. When they have an infection or diarrhea, they are taken care of better. If you have got wonderful peers during your adolescence, you are less likely to get into unhealthy habits which can kill yourself. So many reasons like that. So ensure social support. Inform the parents, ask them to ensure that the kid is not alone, isolated. The students, the teachers, the relatives, the friends, all of us should rally around the child and give him a moral support to give him an idea that he is not alone. We are all there to help. Stress management is another important thing. Maybe Avinash will handle it in the afternoon. Counseling. Counseling is essentially an empowerment process in which you empower the person sitting in front of you to identify his real problems, to think about different possible solutions to his problems, to evaluate the advantages and disadvantages of each one of those solutions, to select the most appropriate solution and to implement it in his life with full responsibility. It's a hand-holding process. You're not giving him answers, you are making that person think. As we say, the best method of teaching in the history of the world is Socratic method of teaching. And Socrates used to follow this method in which he used to encourage students to ask questions. And he would just ask a simple question in return, make them think, and finally the person who asked the question comes with the solution. So since he has racked his brain to come up with a solution, he takes up the ownership of that solution and he is more likely to implement it in his life. It's not as if you have given him an answer and imposed it on him. So that is counseling. And one very important preventive and promotive intervention in schools is life skills education. So proposed by UNICEF, supported by WHO, 10 life skills ranging from self-awareness, communication skills, interpersonal relationship, problem-solving, decision-making, critical thinking, creative thinking, coping with stress, coping with emotions, and empathy. These 10 skills need to be imparted not on a theoretical lecture basis, but as a participatory, process-oriented and experiential learning. Keep away at least 20 hours per year for life skills education. Give them homework assignments. Take it from me, that will solve a whole lot of your problems related to students. So this is the unhealthy triad which is seen in adolescence. And it was as a solution to this unhealthy triad that UNICEF proposed life skills. Unhealthy triad, number one is substance use among adolescents. We all know it is very rampant everywhere in the world. Number two is risky sexual experimentations. Many adolescents are into dating apps, and there are people who are ready, prepared to, exploit these kids too. A lot of legal issues also come in between. POCSO, Juvenile Justice Act, Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act, and even Information Technology Act. We should be empowered about that, because a lot of children here in our part of the world are receiving WhatsApp video calls from unknown numbers recently. And when they attend the call, there will be a nude female on the other end. The children will be surprised, they'll be petrified, they'll just cut the call. But the call would have been 4 or 5 seconds of duration. Immediately, a threatening message comes. Screenshot of this communication in which a nude lady is there and this boy is there with jaws dropping like that. And that will be sent to them and they are threatened, telling that, if you don't send this much amount to this account, we'll share it publicly everywhere. What happened recently was that an 18-year-old boy, in order to empower other children, he made this as an Instagram story and posted it as an Instagram page. I have received such a threatening call, and this was the communication which I received. They have asked me to, send so much money. I'm just posting it as a story so that you will be prepared. Don't attempt any calls from unknown numbers like that. Within the next day, he received a call from Cyber Cell of Police because he has violated Section 67A of Information Technology Act. What does that say? What is the Section 67A? Transmission of obscene materials. The material he posted in the Instagram story had a nude lady's picture, and that is violation of Section 67A of IT Act. We need to know all these things as heads of institution. That's the peril of modern education. And of course, the third one is aggression directed at oneself and others. Suicidal or violent behaviors. Definitely, along with life skills education, mentoring is important. Mentoring is again very different from counseling. It's a process of wholesome empowerment and personality development of a child. As a teacher, you can mentor. Peer mentoring is a wonderful exercise we have done in some schools. Select 4 or 5 kids with better pro-social behavior in the class. These need not be the academically best students. There is absolutely no relationship between academic excellence and social inclination. Take it from me. We have got very intelligent people indulging in all sorts of antisocial behavior. And these 4 to 5 pro-socially inclined kids can be used to mentor academically, socially, emotionally deprived kids. And that process, that hand-holding process works well. And if you have got children who are coming from broken families with nobody to take care of them, spoiled kids, maybe affluent, but there is no kind of supervision, even social mentoring can be tried. But in the days of POXO and all those things, the school will have to take up significant responsibility about supervising these social mentors, otherwise they can become a headache. So the last part of my presentation is about career guidance. You see, only 30% of students joining engineering courses in this country complete the course in 4 years. Another 30% complete the 4-year course in 5, 6, 7 years. 40% of those who join for engineering drop out before the course is complete. Why does this happen? Simple. Because they don't have the mathematical, logical intelligence which is important for engineering learning. They may have a linguistic intelligence which could have made them great journalists. They may have spatial intelligence which could have made them great artists. So, how to guide your students into the appropriate career is also an important responsibility of school teachers. 3 steps for a proper career guidance. I'm telling this because we have got career guidance session in many schools in which people come, just project so many slides about great institutions, the courses, the kind of employment one would get after you pass the course, and the students go into a dreamy world thinking that, oh, wonderful, I'll go to NASA next year after pursuing the course. But nobody tells them whether they have got the skill to pursue this course. That guidance is very important. 3 steps for career guidance. Number 1, you are very familiar with multiple intelligence of Howard Gardner. Assess the multiple intelligence, and which is the most dominant intelligence type, number 1. Step number 2 is aptitude assessment. Despite having the intelligence, does the child actually enjoy the process of engaging in a particular course or profession? That is aptitude assessment. And third is personality assessment. A person who is introvert by nature cannot do well in business management, where he is supposed to guide human beings and interact with human beings and lead them. So there are certain fallacies there. So a combination of all these 3 will give a correct guidance regarding the appropriate career. So I think I have already exceeded my time and had promised to finish by 12:45. Again, my sincere gratitude to the organizers for this great opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for reiterating that a successful school is one that provides a clean and safe environment for its students.
Any questions? Please feel free to ask any questions. I will try to answer it if I know the answer. Sir. Yeah, sir has very wonderfully mentioned important interventions. Children with depression, he had advised to take care of some pets, and that produced wonderful results. Of course, sir, if it is mild to moderate depression, engaging in any activity which gives them a sense of well-being can produce positive results. It may be exercise, it may be taking care of pets, but in severe depression, none of these becomes useful because severe depression means the level of a chemical called serotonin has dropped very much. There we need treatment. Right.
Often the reason is at home and the parent is not ready for any counseling. How do I go about handling the child?
It's a very practical problem which many teachers face because mental health is a stigmatizing issue in our part of the world still. What you can tell is, you can empower the parent regarding the nature and consequences of the condition, especially if he is showing some self-harm tendencies. You can tell the parent that untreated depression can lead to suicides. Empower them. And as they say, you can guide a person only up to the nuptial bed, right? So there is no point in forcing. As a psychiatrist, I would say that never force a parent or a child to go to a psychiatrist. It may work against you. But suggest. There is a whole lot of difference between suggesting and imposing. Maybe because if you impose them and tell them that you should bring a certificate from the psychiatrist, they may do that. But it will not sustain. They'll go to the psychiatrist for the sake of getting a certificate and produce the certificate and don't follow. Depression, if it is severe, needs treatment for 6 to 9 months. 6 to 9 months treatment, it can be completely cured, that's it. So empowering and the interest has to come from inside. So mental health literacy enhancement is very much required at a larger level. But of course, I think you can include this topic also in parent-teacher meetings or whenever you're giving awareness to parents at the beginning of the academic year. Just spend 10 minutes on the mental health aspect also. They may bite better.
Yes. Sir, you just now mentioned that 20 hours we need to put aside, when we give them some assignments or something like this, projects based on life skill. Just, could you give us some examples for the same? And secondly, sir, I have one more thing to say. These things we have heard from many sources, whether in the internet and all, but your talk today was very inspiring, very simple, yet you spoke a lot of, things which might help us. Could we, yes, that is what I felt. Because pin drop silence, sir, we were all listening to you, totally glued, after listening to a speaker like Mr. Arun. So that is indeed a very big compliment for you. Sir, may we have a gist of what you said. Given to the organizers who can mail it to us, we would really benefit from that, sir. Because we want to speak to our children in the way you have spoken. Thank you so much, sir. Please answer my first question. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for those extremely gracious words. First of all, regarding life skills education, UNICEF has introduced it as a training program for all adolescents between 10 to 19. It's at 20 hours per year. So we have developed a module which was published by the Kerala State Council for Education, Research and Training. It is in Malayalam called Villasappa World. It is now getting translated to English and Hindi. It will be available from next year onwards. So some of the activities which we give, we have started it right from first standard onwards, so that we don't want to start it from fifth standard. So one of the activities which is given in first standard is, we ask the kids to draw the members of the family, picture of the members of the family. And after drawing the picture, we just ask them to tell, how do your dad help you? How do your mom help you? How does your grandpa help you? Things like that. That's the first activity. And after that, the next activity is, how can you help your mom in your home? Small food for thought kind of things. And it proceeds like this. Every year, new and new activities to supplement each of these skills. So by the time the child is in 5th standard, we give him an activity. We tell them about the problems of smoking and things like that, and give a homework assignment. I'll give you an example of homework assignment also. After teaching them about the ill effects of tobacco completely, we tell them, you have an exercise. Go to your neighborhood, identify a person who is a chronic smoker, talk to him about these, and ensure that he quits smoking. So that's an exercise. So maybe when the children are motivated, they may go out. We don't think that the entire population of the world will stop smoking with that. What will happen? The boy will go and talk to the uncle in the neighborhood, tell him about all these, uncle will listen and nod his head and agree to stop. What happens the next day? Uncle will continue to smoke, right? Maybe on seeing the kid, he'll try to hide the cigarette. And on the third day, smoke publicly. And when the child is asking him the reason, he said, who are you to question it? So the child gets a very important experiential learning that once you start this habit, it's very difficult to get out of this. That is the message we want to impress in the mind of the child. This is the way in which we have designed that program. So that helps a lot. And this experiential learning, rather than we lecturing about soap stories regarding people who have drowned in alcohol and drugs, this kind of an experiential learning can produce wonders. It's a simple thing. It is available, the Malayalam version for all these people who know Malayalam, it's available in the website of SCERT Trivandrum. The English translation is complete. Now somebody from the education department in central government is going through that to see if there are controversial things. And I don't think there is anything controversial. We haven't touched upon any controversial issues, in fact. So hopefully it will be published by the next academic.
Thank you, sir. I think that was really enlightening. There is a question regarding, sir, this side, on your left. Sir, I just want to know, because now post-pandemic we can see a lot of children still addicted to mobile, but we are not very sure what are the symptoms and how to address this.
I just purposefully left that because it's supposed to be a topic handled by Dr. Avinash D'Souza, but I will definitely answer you. The symptoms of gadget addiction, we call it by the term behavioral addiction. It's very close to substance addiction. In substance addiction, you take a chemical, it produces a change in the brain, and you repeatedly use it. In gadget addiction, you engage in an activity which increases the level of a neurotransmitter called dopamine in the brain. It gives you a high, and you do it repeatedly. The signs are, number one, the child does not interact with parents as before. He appears aloof, does not talk. Closes the room and sits inside the room for long hours. Doesn't come out to have food. Doesn't sleep, appears sleepy during the daytime. He does not talk about his friends to the parents. And when the parents are asking him specifically, he tries to avoid that conversation, and on further probing becomes irritable, uses abusive language, is seen sending sexually explicit material in phone. So the simple solution to that, parental control apps, if used intelligently, can help. I can mention a couple of apps. If the child is using a desktop, something like Artemax keylogger can be very successfully used. If the child is using an Android phone or Apple phone or anything like that for internet intelligence, something like M-Spy cell phone tracker. This M-Spy tracker has got a peculiarity. If you install it in the child's mobile, every digital activity of the child will come to the parent's mobile as screenshot. Sometimes it may produce heart attack to the parent because normal adolescent explorative flirtatious communications, if it comes to the parent's mobile, it can be. I advise this M-Spy only in two situations. Number one, children who has been into drug addiction repeatedly. I tell the parents to install this because we need to keep track of every activity. Number two, I tell the parents whose kids have this habit of eloping away with people, of very senior age. If that happens repeatedly, also we have to take care of them. So for those two categories, M-Spy. But both these are costly things. A very free of costing, which you can freely download from Google Play Store, is Google Family Link. So in parents' mobile, Google Family Link for parents, that version. In the children's mobile, Google Family Link for children and teens, that version. Can pair these two, and three restrictions are possible. Number one, can restrict the time of use of the child's mobile. If you set it as 2 hours here, after 2 hours, the child's mobile will stop functioning. Number two, you can set the number of times the keypad can be unlocked in the child's mobile. 20 times, and if he tries the 21st time, it's off for the next 24 hours. And most importantly, third one, you can control or block certain sites, porn sites, game sites, and other spurious kinds of sites you can block. These three. So you can tell them, but despite these instructions, there are children who suddenly become violent or suicidal. Those are the categories who may require a professional help of a psychiatrist. Thank you.
Excuse me, sir. Yeah. Sir, you mentioned about sadness, avoiding pleasure, impaired thoughts, appetite loss. These are the symptoms. Yeah? But I want to know what are the kind of exposure that triggers depression? That one. And secondly, sir, I want to know why anxiety and depression are always spoken together.
Of course, sir. Number one, there are two kinds of depression. Number one is endogenous depression, and number two is reactive depression. Reactive depression means depression which occurs in response to a life event. It can be a breakup of a relationship, it can be death of a loved one, it can be failure in exam, it can be loss of money, anything. Any life event can trigger depression. But the threshold of triggering it depends upon your personality. And your personality is largely genetically inherited. If your parents are, very anxious or fragile kind of personalities by nature, it is likely that you also may be like that. A small trigger itself can produce it. But there is something called endogenous depression. Here, there will be no trigger. Without any trigger, depression can happen. So often there is this misconception that there needs to be a trigger for depression. At least in 1/3 of the people with depression, there will not be any trigger, and that is endogenous depression. The level of the neurotransmitters dropping without any external reason. The correct answer is there is something called two-hit hypothesis. Number one is, if you are genetically vulnerable to develop a mental illness, you are likely to develop it more than any other person. And second hit is the stressful life event. If you have got a family history of schizophrenia, smoking cannabis just once can make you mentally ill. If you have got a family history of depression, breakup of a love affair itself can make you mentally ill. If there is no family history of any mental illness from both sides, which is very much unlikely in today's scenario, you may be able to withstand significant degrees of life stresses without getting affected by depression. And why anxiety and depression are spoken together, the neurotransmitters which produce both these are common. Only thing is that in depression, the level of neurotransmitters vary in one part of the brain, in anxiety in another part of the brain. That is why it is spoken together. There is a lot of comorbidity between depression and anxiety. Those people with depression, if you take the whole list, 70% of them will have an associated anxiety disorder, and vice versa. So since they occur together and there is a neurobiological common basis, they are spoken together. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for such a wonderful session. And we are all really enjoying. I am Kalyani Chari, Rector, Johnson Grammar School, Kuntlur, Hyderabad. My question, sir. Past 4 months post-COVID, we are observing that the minute we say, should we inform your parent about a small issue, that is becoming a trigger point for children, and we find that they are unable to take that we'll inform your parent. So we have changed our strategy, but we would want to understand what is the correctness in what we are doing today. This is the first question. Second question is, we find a lot of children are enjoying using what we call as abusive language, or the language which is not accepted in the society today. So kindly look into this, please.
Wonderful questions there. Question number one, regarding informing parents. Many of the households in our part of the world have reached a situation where there is a huge distance between parents and children, especially during the beginning of adolescence. Partly something wrong with the parents, because once the children reach high school, they think that their only responsibility is to provide material things like education, tuition, money, good clothes. There is no emotional attachment. One of the fundamental reasons is they are afraid of handling an adolescent. Adolescent might have grown up in size, hugging an adolescent. They're confused about it, basically. But as we all know, all these adolescents, they will have hormones and issues like that. They have a craving to be loved, isn't it? That is very much unidentified and unrecognized and not addressed at households. So what I would suggest is, at the beginning of the year, a meeting of the PTA in which we can give certain instructions to the parents to spend at least 30 minutes per day to listen to the child, not to discourse to the child. Advising, discoursing has been happening, you know. The kind of motivation speeches which parents give to children is actually atrocious to such an extent that is a stress, you know. The parent may be telling about the hardships he had to face when he was a child without money, you know, studying under a lantern and things like that. These folklores are so irritating to children. So tell the parents, listen to them. Be friendly with them. Because you are the person who should understand what is happening in the life of your child. If you don't allow your child to speak or shut him up because he is talking something sexually explicit, it doesn't mean that the child stops talking or thinking about that. He'll stop talking to you alone, but he'll continue exploring that unsupervised. So spend some time and talk to them also about how to address and handle sensitive issues, relationships, sexuality, doubts related to that. How to address that? You know, you don't have to take it as a huge thing because in modern world, children are nevertheless exposed to such things. So don't think that it is a huge fault. Talk to them, listen to them, and work your way out. That is the way. And regarding kids also, there are one or two situations in which you will have to inform the parents despite the kids not agreeing. If the child is suicidal, you need to inform. Absolutely no doubt. Immediate information. If the child is intoxicated with drugs, you know, not smoking a cigarette or something, but he is intoxicated with drugs, definitely have to inform because legal issues.
But is it okay that all petty things we deal in the school, so that child is at comfort zone, not
It's better to ask the parents to remain in regular contact with the class teacher on a periodic basis so that these things can be discussed and inform the children that such a platform of communication is open, so it will be informed to the parents by default. It's not going to be done when just that issue arrives. Is that okay? Thank you.